Hi everyone, and welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. This week I'm joined with JP from Derry. JP, how are you?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent stuff. So we're going to preview the Premier Division games upcoming this week. Hopefully be no games called off this week. Looking unlikely that there will be for a good few teams, 4 teams this week. It'll be the first game of the season. So we'll jump right into it, JP. So we're about to start in the Yellow Bohemians. Bows take on Dundalk. Bows are home. It's their first game, obviously, of the season in the league. Obviously, Dundalk had a good 2-2 draw with Derry, but obviously, lost the lead a good few times against Derry. Take
Yeah,
us through this one. What do you think of this game?
it's an interesting one to start because, as you touched on there, Bows haven't started yet, but Dundalk haven't. They've a competitive game already under their belt. But one thing I will say is that um, Dundalk Dundalk will be good this year, but they'll not be as good as what they have been in previous seasons. I expect them to be around the fourth, fifth position. I think the top three, as you touched on there, they conceded two goals against Derry, and it was probably two avoidable goals as well. But Derry could probably say the same about the two goals that Dundalk scored against us as well. But later on, as the game started to get near the end, Derry would push forward and could have easily won the game against Dundalk. So they will give chances, and it's just about whether you have a striker that can do that. I know Bows are without Georgie Kelly this year. And I think they've signed Junior, and I'm not quite sure who else they've signed in attack. But no, they've lost Alexa Keith Ward to Dundalk, who will know. And no doubt Stephen O'Donnell will be asking for his opinion on the build up to this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said there, the Dundalk aren't as strong as what they were in previous seasons. I do believe, however, they're stronger than what they were last season, and I just think
Definitely, yeah.
have a few characters out of the dressing room that maybe mightn't have been good for the team, and they have a lot of league experience back in the side now, and they've got a good experienced manager at the helm now who's League of Ireland through and through, who knows the league, and he brought some sort of success to Pats last season. He brought them a cup, so he's won silverware. I was just looking at the Dundalk bench from last week. They had like Garton, Kelly, Sloggett, Ward, McMillan. Like, that's unbelievable. And obviously Connolly came in too, that I touched on a few weeks ago. Keith saying, he's a player that I actually know quite well from watching the leagues in England, and he got in the goals score sheet as well. I think this Dundalk team is much better than last season. That bench is pretty strong as well.
It is, and I think their bench on Friday night was probably actually stronger than what Derry's was. Derry were missing a few new signings and still plenty of young players on the bench. But as you touched on there, O'Donnell signed players that he can trust. He's brought Sam Bone and Robbie Benson back from St Pat's. Keith Ward, I think he played with them before as well. So he's signing League of Ireland experience. He's signing players that he can trust. He wants to get the belief back in the fans again. Which I don't think it was ever going to not be there once they appointed Stephen O'Donnell. But it's not going to happen overnight, and I think the Dundalk faithful will know that. But as I touched on it again, they're a team that will give you chances. The two goals that Derry scored, it came from absolutely nothing. Like two players dived in on the halfway line, and Derry went on and got the chances and scored. And it's just all about whether Bows will have that predator instinct in the penalty box the way Derry did on Friday night. I'm going to Because Dundalk already have a game under their belt, I'm going to go for a draw in this game. Otherwise, I'd probably be going for Bows, but I'm going to say a draw in this game.
Very good. I think for Bows themselves going into it, it's it's another season where we've lost quite a lot of players. For me and for a lot of Bows fans in particular, experience is something we're missing out on this season big time. We don't really have any, really experienced players. We have a very young squad again. A lot of the players he brought in are quite young as well. Ryan Cassidy on loan from Watford. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in the Bulls shirt. He's got a great record at underage. It's going to be very interesting to see who Keith Long actually goes to up front. I think Promise has got a very good chance with starting. He's done nothing wrong. He has to set a foot wrong in the Bulls shirt. Excuse me. In the Bulls shirt. he grew into the Bones as the season went on, and I think he's turned himself more from a winger into a striker. He's a powerhouse, and a lot of the players who's played with him have said really good things about him, and just his work rate and determination is really good. So it'll be interesting to see who he actually goes with up front. We probably will play with wingers. Twaddock is a winger, Burt's a winger. He's probably going to go with those. Yeah, they're wingers, and then you've got Cassidy, you've got Junior, and Promise as strikers. That's good options there, and you could drop in Ali Cute then behind the striker. So I think that's going to be that might work well. I hope it does.
Yeah.
Other than that, for me, I really hope both hit the ground running with a win. I think it's something that we need to do. Every team needs to hit the ground running with a win. It's a sold out game for Bulls, and every game this season with Bulls isn't really going to be sold out. So that's really, really good. Unfortunate for any fans who, they're not season ticket holders or members to get tickets. So it's going to be hard for them.
Which is where I think League of Ireland TV comes is really important, because I think we're going to experience the same thing here, and in Derry as well, with a lot of sellout games, as you don't want fans who miss out on a ticket, they miss out completely. So I think that's where it's important that they can watch it somehow. Like,
yeah, definitely. I think it's great to have LOI TV, on a Monday night up to Derry. Anyone who works 9 to 5 won't be going. Simple as, let's take a day off work. So
yeah.
it's great to have that for the league. For myself, for this one, I'm going to go with a 1-0 Bulls win. I think fans are going to be behind us. It sounds very biased. I'm very aware of that.
No, I totally agree. I probably would have went Bows myself. Only Dundalk have the competitive game under their belt, and that's the only reason why. And I thought they played some nice stuff against Derry as well, and
They did, yeah.
they probably had the better chances. And I just think they have the extra. They've one competitive game on their belt, where Bows are only coming into this without a competitive game. So that's the only reason why I went to draw. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And how I'm trying to look at this is, rather than being a negative, I'm trying to look at it positively by saying, the players going to be even more hungry than Dundalk to try and get a win. It's their first game. Dundalk have had their
Yeah.
first game over, done with. Win, draw, loss, it's done. It's our first game. It's time to build for our season, and starts Friday night. So hopefully to go and give it their all. That's all we can ask for. Very excited to see how it goes. Quickly before we move on, I want to give Dundalk a massive shout out. They did a thing for Women's Aid before the game. They collected money for Women's Aid. They wore shirts with Women's Aid on it, and they raised awareness about it all week. Obviously, it's a very important thing that's going on in the country at the minute, but it was really good to see them taking interest in it and bring it forward. And the women's game continues to grow, and it's brilliant that they had the initiative and raised awareness about them. So fair play to them, and fair play to anyone that done it and everyone involved with that. A very good organisation indeed.
Second that, yeah.
Move on to the next game then. We have St. Patrick's Leg against Sligo, JP, and it's going to be Sligo's first game this season now as well. Obviously, they were supposed to play both last week, and that was the one that got called off for us and for Sligo. Pats are just off the back with 3-0 win over Shells, which is a very, very good game and a very good win for Pats. Could they start going on the run now? Because they could beat Sligo, and secondly, they got 2 wins on the trot.
Yeah, all I saw from the Pats game was the goals, and the first one, especially from Dara Burns, was unbelievable. But talking from somebody who actually did sit down and watch it, they said that Shelbourne did give a good account of themselves. They had a goal disallowed, for offside, I think, and St. Pat's had 3 really good counter-attacking goals, and I think St. Pat's done brilliant to get Tim Clancy, because as soon as they found out that they weren't going to be keeping O'Donnell, they went and they got somebody who knew the League of Ireland, who was going to sign players that they could trust.
Didn't take Keith long.
And it's same players that they could trust, and I think it was a good bit of business from St. Pat's, and I think Tim Clancy is going to be a good manager for them. He's got off to a fantastic start. 3-0 win away at Shelbourne, one of your Dublin rivals. Can't ask for much more. something to build upon. They're coming into it off the back of that. The team are going to be bouncing, especially after winning the cup last year. They've
Definitely.
taken that momentum and the start of a new season. Sligo, who qualified for Europe last year, they kind of limped over the line. Their signings hasn't been as fluent or
And just to look at Sligo there too, JP, like they're obviously after losing Kenny, who scored quite a lot of
yeah,
goals to them when it was energy up front, and look,
McMahon.
Matton in the centre backs is absolutely
Yeah,
unbelievable. That
yeah.
really led their team, cohese last season and worked together. So it's going to be very interesting for to see Sligo this season to see how they go. I think
Yeah.
either fans are probably going to be trying to expect Europe again, which I think will be a hard task. I don't think it's
You,
impossible for Sligo. I think they are a
you
great
would
team still, but
you would think that they expect them to be challenging for Europe, and I expect them to be in around the top 4, 5, 6. I think that it's going to be Bows, Dundalk, Sligo, that sort of area of the table. I think Dundalk, or sorry, I think Pats will be further up the table than that, and I think they've just taken the momentum into the new season. Sligo they come in the season off, as I said earlier, off the back of qualifying for Europe, but they've lost a few players in pre-season. They, they've they haven't really convincingly replaced them. They've gone out and they've brought bodies in, but it's from outside this league. Will it take a while for them to settle in? Who knows? Will they hit the ground running? That's the questions that remain to be answered. And because I'm going to go for St. Pat's to win this, basically because of the momentum is with them after last week's victory.
how do you think Sligo should set themselves up to play against Pats? Because obviously they've got a lot of attacking, up front. Pats do, and they're all
Mm.
energy. They can pass the ball really well. They can defend well. They kept a clean sheet in the first game. They don't really seem to have any weaknesses to jump out at me at all. I
No.
think Sligo should approach this. They're playing away from home as well.
It's hard to know. I think I think you have to try and win the midfield battle in any game of football. If you win the midfield battle, it'll go a long way to you winning winning the football match or getting something out of the match. And I think everyone knows that the talisman in St. Pat's is Chris Forrester. He's going to dictate the play. As I said, I never watched the game last week against Shelbourne, but I heard that he got man of match. That's no surprise to me. Anybody who's been watching the League of Ireland for years knows that he went across to England. It didn't work out. He came back here, and he's a top player. And I think you've got to try and win that midfield battle. You've got to try and stifle Chris Forrester, stop the service into the strikers. If Sligo can do that, then they stand a good chance of getting something from this game. Um, can Will they commit? Will they settle for a point in their first game of the season? Who knows? Will they go and try and win it? I think if they open up and try and play St. Pat's, um, if they open up, I think St. Pat's will pick them off. But I'm going to go for St. Pat's win here. I think they'll just have too much for them.
Yeah, definitely. I've always said anyone in this league can beat anyone on their day, which is completely true. But I think with some games you kind of have to, pick your battle and kind of pick how you're going to play. And I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think it'd be no harm if Sligo try to pack the midfield, leave one up front, and try and catch them on the counter. Because I think Pats for me are going to have probably most of the ball, and they're probably going to try and hit them with their pace, and they're going to put out the wing, they're going to put out the Burns. They're
Yeah,
going to get Forrester on the ball as much as they can because he's going to make the right pass 9 times out of 10. His decision making and knowledge is really, really good. He's got a very good football brain on him. And like you said, if they can somehow try and keep him out of the game, who knows? Obviously, Dara Burns is an exceptional talent too, can go in like that goal he got was brilliant. So they're two talismans, and they're going to try and keep them quiet. Very difficult task for Sligo, I think. I think for Pats, I think if they just play their game like how they always play, keep it on the ground, play, just pass it around, knock it about, get it first, or get it to Burns, get it up front, and get a few crosses into the box. I actually would think they should probably win this one. I wouldn't say comfortably because Sligo are a good team, but
yeah.
I'm not going to say 2-0 Pats win. I don't think Sligo will be bad in the game. I just think, for me, Pats just have a lot of quality this season. I just think they have. I just think they'll win some 2-0 for me. Um, Moving into the next game, then we have Drogheda against Shelbourne. Obviously, again, JP. It's Drogheda's first game this season as well. And Damien Duffy the other night with Shelbourne. He's 3-0 defeat.
Yeah.
That was obviously put on RTE because a lot of people would have tuned in for who he is, which is fair enough. And I have to say, first of all, JP, I really don't think that Shells are that bad in the game. They conceded 3 goals, but one of the goals is spectacular, really good. Burnsley's goal is very, very good, but Shells
Yeah.
weren't bad. Like they really went bad, and they made things
Yeah.
happen, and they had chances. Take us through this one. Drogheda are home for this one.
Yeah, as I touched earlier, I never actually watched the game on RT last week, but as I said, from people I was chatting, they did watch it. They said Shelbourne gave a good account themselves. Dan Chiara had a goal disallowed. We know he's been in the league before, Shamrock Rovers, and he done well in Europe and earned earned a move off the back of that to the team that actually put Shamrock Rovers out. I can't remember their name, but I just remember that the story behind it. Look, the spotlight's on Damien Duff because of who he is. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people expect him to fail, and there's a lot of people want him to fail, and it's probably no. I wouldn't say it's extra pressure because he's been in more pressurized positions in this throughout his footballing career. It's his first managerial job properly, senior managerial job, and he didn't get off the best of starts, but I'm sure he'll he'll pick out parts of the performances that he'll be happy with, obviously, and not be happy with the goals he conceded or the defeat. And I'm sure he would have been working on them. Him and his background team would have been working on them this week ahead of Drogheda. Um, as you say, Drogheda, another team who are yet to get started because of a game that was called off because of the weather last week. But a third home. So that's an advantage for them. It's a tight pitch. The crowd's on top of you. If Drogheda fans can come out in their numbers, and produce an atmosphere, it could get them over the line. And this is a tough one for me to call. Yeah,
I
tough.
think too. It'll be a tough game for both teams, but I think like I said, it's a tight pitch to Drogheda, and the fans do get behind them. And when they go a goal up, then fans they erupt, and the place it goes great for Drogheda fans then. And heading the game park, it's a great ground to go to as well. It's obviously it's the first game, like I said, so I think they're going to be really up for it, especially
Yeah,
Duffer coming here with
yeah,
Shelbourne team where they turned around. They brought in a completely new squad this season. They invested heavily into the squad, so they've got an awful lot of new players after coming in. I think Jack Mylan's performance up front for Shelbourne was really good, and like I've said a few times now already, I'm very disappointed that we don't have him at Bowls this season because I think he's a smashing young player and he showed glimpses of what he can do the other night, and I just thought he was really good around the box. His passing was good, his first touch was good, dribbling was good, feet was good, speed was good. He had a lot of things going from the other night, and I think this could be, he's going to have a good season ahead of him. But for myself, JP, I actually think Shell's going to win this one 2-1. I just think they've got a lot of firepower, and from what I seen last night, if they can convert some of them chances into goals, I just think they'll win. Obviously, you could kind of say our league's kind of split into two mini leagues in a way. A lot of people like to put it that way. And I think Drogheda will be kind of upper mid table of their own mini league, if that kind of
yeah,
makes sense to people, which is about what 6, 7 in our, the overall table. But
yeah.
I think Shelbourne will be looking to finish around that as well. So they are, evenly enough match teams. I just think Shelbourne are a bit, more tricky up front. So for me, I went for a 2-1 Shelbourne win. What's your prediction for that one?
Yeah, I think because Drogheda have lost a few players, they've lost their manager in
Goalkeeper.
pre-season. Um, their goalkeeper as well, yeah. James Brown, who was influential in their team last year. They've lost Killian Phillips. I know
Headless.
they've had the continuity in keeping Kevin Doherty and moved them up and brought in the ex-Longford manager. Um, I know they have all that, and I think I have to agree based on that. And I know touched about on the Drogheda fans, the tight pitch and all that, but I think Shelbourne have a game under their belt. They played relatively well apparently against
They did. No, they did.
against
I
St.
watched
Pat.
that game, and I think Shelbourne actually played very well. It's, like I said in
And
the review show, they overplayed in the back a little bit,
yeah,
and they made
and
mistakes.
I think because of all that, because because they've a game under their belt, they played relatively well in it. Drogheda are fairly new. They're a fairly new group, management and players, and I'm going to go for 2-0 Shelbourne.
2-0 Shelbourne. Shelbourne fans will be happy with that anyway. Yeah. I think the next game then we're going to move on to will be UCD against Harps, the students. Great to have them back in the league. Mixed opinions.
Fantastic.
Mixed opinions for people having them back. Obviously, no fans, but they make players and they play really well. They're a great team to watch.
Yeah.
I think it's Harp's first game as well. JP going to Sun Under, away to UCD. I actually watched the back UCD against or Shamrock Rovers against UCD, and UCD actually weren't that bad. Kerrigan had a good few chances. He forced Manus into a good few saves, I have to say. Whelan was good up front. He did try and press when he could. He got into the box when he could. He tried to break in the back when he could. But obviously that Rovers team, which we'll move on to, for the last game against Shelbourne, because I know you're itching to get onto that. But,
Yeah.
obviously the Shamrock Rovers are an exceptional team and they're going to be very hard to break down. But I know they lost 3-0, but they've made a very good account of themselves against Shamrock Rovers. Take us through this one. What way do you see this one going?
I see this going in the favour of UCD, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Derry fan and Finn Harps fans might not think me, and I could be left with egg on my face, but I see this going in the favour of UCD, basically because they've a game under their belt again. They've kept they've kept their squad relatively together. Colin Whelan up front. They held Shamrock Rovers for 40 minutes in Tala. Now, if they had got into half time at 0-0, I still think they probably would have lost. But the fact is, they managed to hold them. Finn Harps have lost a lot. Have lost a lot in attack. They've lost Sean Boyd, Foley, Owolabi. They've lost Mark Coyle, who was one of the probably the best midfielders that they've had in the last 5-6 years. They've lost him to Shelbourne. I know that they've kept their back line together, and Ethan Boyle and Dave Webster still there, McNamee still there in midfield. And again, they haven't had a competitive game under their belt. They've brought in a lot of outsiders from, I say outsiders, brought in a lot of signings from outside the league. Will take time for them to get to know the league. Do they? How
Ollie Horgan loves a foreign import.
he does, and to be fair to him, he always seems to get the best out of them eventually.
He does,
But
and he actually has picked up a good few players over the season who's worked
yeah,
out, and a lot of them actually ended up moving back.
he's
Obviously,
lost Jordan Musto as well, which he was a
yeah,
huge
he's
player
good.
for them.
I'm going
And
to see if I can pronounce this one correctly. Mihalovic. Mihalovic. Oshin can correct me with that pronunciation now in the comments down below. Obviously, actually, JP touched on signings for Harps. An interesting one. Bastian Heary brought on the Finn
yeah,
Harps. I didn't really expect him to end up at Harps. Obviously, I know how he turned out for Bowes. You know how he turned out for Derry. Could it be a different story with him for Finn Harps this season? Could he be their saviour?
that's the thing. We've seen if you can get the Limerick Heary playing and the Limerick or the Waterford Heary from the start,
And
if you can get
we knew of both said this last season, and we both didn't see it. So if Harps can actually, Ollie Horgan
if you
can
can
get
get
this
that
here,
Heary, you've got a player in your hand. The
definitely.
problem is, and I've noticed it at Derry, he was better as an impact player coming off the bench. Anytime he started, he seemed to be anonymous, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to him, but he just seemed to be better coming off the bench for us. I don't know what he was like at Bowes,
Shocking.
and was he? I know talking to a few boys that follow the Irish League, they said he started off well at Linfield, and if Ollie can get Bastion back that we saw at Limerick and saw part of it at Waterford. If he can get him back, he's got a top player in his hand. But the thing is, what type of game are Finn Harps going to play? That's the thing.
That's exactly what I was gonna touch on next, because here
Are they going to play it, because they've got McNamee in there as well, who's a damn good footballer as well.
very good, yeah.
So, and he seems to have coped with the way Finn Harps play. Well, I know Finn Harps scored quite a few great footballing goals last year. One of them being against Shamrock Rovers, I think. So,
Yeah.
so they have tried to adapt their game in recent seasons, and maybe the signing of Heary is this Ollie trying to take it to another level. Who knows, but
Mm.
I think I think I'm going to go for UCD in this one. It'll not be runaway. I'd say maybe 1-0, 2-1, something along that. But then again, it could be left with Egmufis, and the scoreline could swing the other way.
UCD play completely different, really. UCD can always keep the ball on the ground. They would never dare go long. If anyone looks back at their playoff goals from last season, they got one or two from going long, which was interesting. But UCD will be playing out all the time, and I think Harps are kind of one of these teams that's all energy to press hard and don't have the ball, and to get back in numbers to defend against teams that might counter attack, and they group together and they move as a unit. And I think that's one place where Heary might struggle. Obviously, it depends on how Ollie's going to work it. But just looking at the game, this is going to be a very interesting game, I think, and one that I'm certainly going to watch back, because UCD just play really good football, and Harps, not to be disrespectful, have their own way of playing, which is fine, because I believe
Perfect.
there's no right way to play football. As results, whatever way you get the result is the way to play, and whether you play to your own strengths, and if that's going long, if that's going short, you do what you got to do. And I just
It's
think it's
just
going to
going to be
be
interesting
it's
because
going to be interesting, that because it's going to be a real
because
battle, I think, between the
yeah,
two
in
teams.
the last couple of seasons, Harps have had Foley, Owolabi, Sean Boyd, boys that are either target men or can hold the ball up.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure the attacking player. I know they signed Joe Matty, who probably somebody who be expecting who run in behind, get chances that way.
he'll be playing as
Um,
a pressing striker as well when they don't have the ball, I think, as well. So they'll be
so
pressing from the front and defending from the front, and a lot of games, especially
yeah,
against UCD, they'll be trying to force the play one way.
you'd expect Finn Harps to take the game to UCD rather than the other way round. Um, and I think if Finn Harps go there and be compact, I think they'll be difficult to beat. But if they go there and you'd expect them, because they're now the established League of Ireland team, you'd be expecting them as they go and take the game to UCD. If they do that, it might open the game up and give UCD the chance to beat them. If they go there and be compact, it'll be really difficult for UCD. But I think this is going to be an interesting game, and I'm just going to say UCD just.
Interesting, because I'm actually going to go with Finn Harps 1, UCD 0. So it's going to be an interesting game. Moving on to the finale then, JP, we've got Derry against Shamrock Rovers. I'll let you take us through this one.
Yeah, well, it's couldn't ask for a bigger test, really. Started off with a tricky game at Oriel Park against Dundalk, which we could have won late on, but we very could have lost it early on as well. So, they come away with a draw was pleasing. But to get Shamrock Rovers at home in your first game of the season, look, you have to play them. You have to play them 4 times, so it doesn't matter when you're going to play them. To be honest, it's an interesting one. Um, it's a sellout already. With it's already a sellout. So, and it's live on RT as well. So it's interesting. It's an early test for Rory's new group. Last week against Dundalk was an early test, but I felt that if the better conditions, I think we would have beaten Dundalk. I think in better conditions last week. Um, this is going to be an interesting test. Um, I want to say that we can win it. I think we can win it. Anybody can win a game of football, but it's going to be difficult. They've got so much talent within their squad from front to back, especially in that midfield area. They've got Jack Byrne. They've brought him back. They've got Richie Tyle in there.
Danny Manju, Green Burke, Macmillan,
You,
Jack
like
Byrne, Powell,
yeah,
Watts, James
it's a
What? They've got an absolute.
litany of stars. Like, so, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be difficult over the course of the season to pip them. But I think in a one-off game, can we catch them cold in their first away game? Who knows? But I'm really looking forward to this one. I
Yeah,
really am.
obviously Rovers are, they're a very, very strong team in this league. I think they've got quality all round, and some people would say they don't have an out striker, and that's a weakness of them. But then I'd say, well, is it though? Because they've got 3 or 4 midfielders that are capable of scoring 5 to 10 goals each.
Danny Mandry, 15 last year from midfield.
Yeah, which, that kind of compensates for not having an out-and-out striker, really, because they don't need to play like that. They're not really relying on one man or two fronts. They don't rely on that. That's not how to play. So Shamrock Rovers have got a really good team. We all know that. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for Derry, JP, and
The one thing is, we're hoping now this week, we were missing Michael Duffy and Matty Smith against Dundalk, and I'm not sure what the updating is in that, but if we can have both Emmons available, it'll really boost us. Michael Linney was on the bench. He came off the bench last week. I think it was his first few minutes since he got the injury against Derry in August. So we've got him there as well.
Yeah,
Get him back fighting fit too will be good. It's going to be difficult for us. But in a one-off game, anything can happen. And a massive crowd behind them as well. And from my experience with following Derry City, if you get the brand they well packed, you pack it out, it can be a tough place to play.
Yeah, it definitely can be. It's a very tough place to go to, yeah, but I actually think, though, JP, I'm actually going to go with Rovers win. I would love for you to beat Shamrock Rovers. I'd love any team to beat Shamrock Rovers, but speaking with my Irish Footy Vlogs head on me here, I think if you're not a fan of Derry or Rovers, well, or Bows, you could say, into that matter, you're probably going to pick Rovers against Derry. I think it's going to be hard for Rovers, but I think it's going to be 1-0 to Rovers.
It just depends what way Rory sets up. Will he set up the pack and midfield to try and stop that? Will he set up and take a game the Shamrock Rovers is a thing, but the key for Derry is to get McGonigal into the game against Dundalk on Friday night. The one time in the first half that we actually got him in the game, he created the chance and we scored from it. He scored the equaliser, the second equaliser. He hit the bar. For us, a massive way of us winning this game is to get Jamie McGonigal involved. If we can do that, we'll stand a chance. But at the same time, you have to try and stop so like the Mandrew, Aaron Green, Jack Byrne. It's a
easy. So
it's a mammoth task. It's a mammoth task, but it's not impossible. And I think because we're at home, I think we're going to draw this one.
And look, when you break it all down, it's it's a game. It's 11v11 on the day, and whoever turns up on the day most likely normally wins. And I think that's how you have to look at these kind of games. So I think quickly then just look at the Premier Division table. After the first game, there's not really much of a point, but Rovers are obviously first, then Pat's second, Derry are third, Dundalk are fourth, Bohs are fifth, Drogheda sixth, Harps seventh, Sligo eighth, Shells ninth, and UCD are 10th. JP, would you take third right now if we give it to you?
Yes, because it's progress from last year. I think what we can't, after all the signings that we've made, what we can't do this year is fall over the line, basically in fourth place, and then hope that the cup winners come from the top three. I think we have to finish third. I would take third right now, definitely, in a cup run, absolutely, because it's viewed as progress. Now, I'm sure in behind closed doors, Rory and his team have probably set their own targets and have probably set their target a bit higher. But for me, as a supporter, if you give me third now, I would take it.
Yeah, that's excellent stuff, JP. Thanks for everyone for watching the video. Please like the video, subscribe if you're new, and hit your bell notifications. Thanks, JP, for coming on.
Power Daz, thanks for having me.